Hi, folks. Steve Mullins here with the Health and Safety Channel. And the topic here is, are older houses safe, or older properties that you may rent or buy safer than, say, newer properties when it comes to mold or bacteria growth? Well, a lot of that depends on how the property is maintained. Now, years ago, back before the 60s, older houses were built in a way that kept them drier from when leaks would occur or other things. Because after that point in time, uh, in modern construction methods, if you will, insulation started to be added to houses. When the older houses at that time, back say before the 60s, they didn't have that in a lot of times. And a lot of times they were on a raised foundation, so they were above the actual ground and weren't really subject to groundwater or things from the soil. So, that being said, when there was a leak that had occurred or does occur, they may fix the leak. But a lot of times owners didn't know how to deal with the fact there's still moisture or water that is soaked into the building materials. And so if you're buying or moving into an older property, whatever the case may be, then there may well be some older moisture issues. And I say older in the sense of they might have happened some months ago or maybe a couple of years ago. And even in that situation, they can still be wet and growing mold and bacteria. So in that situation, you want to make sure you have an inspection done for potential mold or moisture issues. Now, I say that because a lot of times people will buy a house, or let's say you're buying one, they'll have a certified home inspector do a home inspection, and that's good. I agree with those. However, those inspectors are generally not qualified or trained to search for hidden moisture or evaluate it. And I say that because that's the fact. They're different animals. Now, there's a few certified home inspectors that will have a basic mold investigative certificate of some sort. There's a few of them, not very many. Some will even advertise that they can do mold testing. And I've actually looked into one or two of those bigger companies and their credentials and find out they really don't have any credentials to evaluate that with. They're not really qualified. What they do is they'll take air samples, for example, and let the lab analyze them, which labs do that, but then they'll let the lab create what's called a sort of a mold report, if you will, based on the samples. The problem is those samples should be done or evaluated in conjunction with an actual inspection for potential moisture and mold issues. That's the way they're supposed to be evaluated, not by a computer program, by a company having taken the samples that aren't qualified to do that kind of inspection. Let me get off that topic. But the idea here is you want to make sure that you have an inspection done either by a microbial consultant, if possible, or a certified industrial hygienist. Those are the two best credentials, as I've mentioned in past videos. Now, there are some other inspectors that have lower credentials that can do a good job. A lot of it depends on their background and how much they care about doing their job and keeping you, their client, safe and giving the best recommendations possible. That's a lot of what that boils down to. Some of them are just there to make a dollar, take some quick samples, do an inspection, say, yeah, I find this, and they'll put down some vague recommendations. But that's another pet peeve of mine. I'm going to get off that for the moment. So the idea is you want to have this property inspected. Now, if you're buying it, you can use that report for the issues that are found to negotiate with the seller as far as any credit to get that repaired, or you have them repair it and make sure it's done to industry standards, and then you can continue in the buying process. It just depends on what you two want to work out. Now, if you're a renter, you want to have that done even in older apartment communities, because with the inspections I've done in this area, and I'm referring to, Orange County and outside of that between LA and San Diego, Riverside County as well, you're going to have a lot of old issues that may be there to some degree because, again, landlords either don't know how to deal with it or they don't think about it. They sort of bury their head in the sand after they repair the leak, assuming they repair it, and then they don't do anything else about it until somebody complains. And then even then, you have to have an inspection from someone like me to say, yes, there's an issue in the house that has to be fixed. So if you're already living in the property, then if you already said something to them that there's an issue you believe they need to check out, and they don't do much about it, then you call someone like me do the inspection, we find the issues, it's in the report, and you give that to your landlord. And then you can also take that expense off your rent because one or more issues were found that they need to fix. And that is California law, but you have to handle it a certain way so you can, make sure you get the credit. Usually you just take it, but that's another issue. And so that's what you can do if you're already living in the property. Now, if you're moving or you're trying to find a property to move into, it is a good idea to have an inspection done for potential moisture or mold issues before moving in, if possible. Because I've had clients that they've had to move out of their properties and they're trying to find ones they can move into. And I do an inspection for them on 1, 2, or 3 properties, and I'm still finding issues in these properties that they're trying to move into that have been vacant. And keep in mind, the landlord is supposed to disclose to you any leaks or even suspected mold that has occurred in the last 10 years per California law. Now, unfortunately, the practice is they don't really do that, okay? Or if they do it, yes, we had the leak and it's been fixed. Maybe they don't give you a whole lot of information about that. Well, the leak may have been fixed, but was it water mitigated or was it mold remediated properly or at all? And you can always ask to see that paperwork if you want, and they should be able to show that to you because they would always have a copy of what was done in some kind of report and or invoices as far as the work that was done in that property. Now, as a renter, though, you are in a catch-22. If you haven't moved into the property or you want to get it inspected before you actually move in or finalize the lease, then if someone like me does find one or more issues, depending on what those issues are, you may decide not to move in. Then you sort of out that money. Well, that can be the case. However, if they didn't disclose anything to you and yet evidence of moisture has been found or evidence of mold is growing, then you can get a rent credit or a credit for that because of the fact they didn't disclose it to you, depending on how the contract has been done or was in the process of being done. But you have to talk to an attorney about how to do that. Anyway, these are things I just want you to be aware of on these older properties. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of them that are problematic. Many are well maintained and they're fixed properly by the owners. A lot of them are not. So just trying to keep you safe. And until next video, stay safe and hope things go well. Bye.